Good evening, everyone. Let me just quickly add our guest this evening, Ms. Divya Bijilwan, to the screen. And let me also add my colleague, Mr. Akash Sinha, to the screen. Right. So, welcome, Divya ji, to this important webinar. Let me introduce Ms. Divya Bijilwan. She is a chartered accountant, MBA from Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. She is currently a senior vice president at Aurobindo Pharma Limited. She heads the vaccine business and managing the company's COVID-19 vaccine development. That is something that all of us are eagerly waiting for, given that all of us are locked down in our houses since March 2020. She's leading the company's digital transformation exercise. I think in the age of digital transformation, again, that is an important vertical which she is heading. She has diverse experience and skill set. She has been into strategy, planning, management, business development, marketing, investment banking, life sciences, health tech, and finance. She was associated with companies like Morgan Stanley and Biological E in her previous assignments. Without really taking much of any more time, I think let me just quickly cut across to our guest, and we welcome you, Divyaji, to this important webinar. And a lot of students are watching you, and many of them will be joining shortly, and many of them are joining as we speak. Over to you. And thank you so much for accepting our invitation and agreeing to speak to our students this evening. Thank you so much.
Pleasure is mine, Mr. Nayak. Thank you for having me here. Thanks for your kind words as well. And I'm very positively influenced by the work your organization and NUSSD is doing for the students. So very happy to be on this platform and to share some of my thoughts and my inputs, and if I can be of any help to them in their career journey, I would feel I've contributed in my own way as well. So look forward to interacting with the students, with your candidates. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I will be talking about moving forward in your career in the tough times. I hope the screen is all right. It's visible to you. So in terms of what all I'll cover in the presentation, I'll speak a little bit about my journey so far. And then we go to the next section, which is the key to happiness in career, followed by flourishing in the job. Following that, in case you're looking for a new job, then some tips for your job search. And finally, tips for a good CV. So moving to my career journey so far, as Mr. Nayak mentioned, I'm a chartered accountant and an MBA. I did my MBA in finance, in strategy, and in leadership from ISB Hyderabad. I started my career with IFCO, Indian Farmers Fertilizer Cooperative, and I used to work in their strategic management group. I worked there between 2004 and 2007. And I believe that a lot of what I am today is thanks to the people that I started my career with. So I do want to make a note about that here. After my MBA, I worked with Morgan Stanley in their investment banking division in Mumbai. Worked there between 2008 and 2009. And then I moved to Hyderabad and I started working with Biologically Limited, which is a company into pharmaceuticals and life sciences and mainly focused on vaccines. I worked there for 10 years up till 2019. And I used to work there in business development, corporate strategy, certain years in project management and planning. And also in finance in terms of accounts and taxation. And since 2019, I'm working with Aurobindo Pharma Limited, and I'm continuing to work there. So moving on to the next section, and why I wanted to talk about this is Many times I see that youngsters, they're in a hurry, and that hurry, I think, is not it's not a very pragmatic approach, because our careers span something like 40 years. So don't start judging your career, from where you're starting, but work towards your goals. Your goals need to be more long term. Now, very simplistically, our careers are a means of earning livelihood, but then that's a very basic definition. There also are stepping stones to success, to recognition, to satisfaction, and to service to society. So, in a nutshell, a good career is something which plays a lot of importance in making our lives happier, and therefore it's important to also understand what is the key to happiness in our career. So, in my opinion, that key is self awareness. We need to understand what are our strengths, our potential challenges, what is our approach to problem solving and managing tasks. And when I say that, let's say that I'm somebody who has a more creative bent of mind. So clearly, I may be better at certain tasks and not so good in some other tasks. So, for example, if I'm a creative person and if I've done computers, maybe animation will be an area where I will thrive. But if I go to, say, marketing a software to another company, it may not be my strength area. And therefore, I think in the initial stages of career, if people can assess themselves, spend some time, introspect, and try and understand what their natural inclinations are, and then it can help them to play to their strengths, it would be a really good idea. So I would encourage you to try and identify what your interest areas are. Uh, if there's a doctor, let's say, and his interest area is, say, creativity, he may do better as a plastic surgeon. Whereas if his interest area is more of an investigative type or an organizing type, he may be better suited for like internal surgery. So whatever education that we might have got, even in spite of that, there are several career paths which we can choose. And if we can choose something which helps us to leverage our strengths, it helps us to thrive in our careers as well. So I would strongly recommend people to spend some time in that. Also, because, as you keep growing in your careers, the cost of moving to something else becomes higher and higher. That's what is known as opportunity cost. But the sooner you can identify and go in the direction of what your interests are and what your goals are, uh, the smoother your journey is going to be. Going to the next section, which is flourishing in the job. Now, it is a difficult time. There are a lot of people who are, struggling for jobs, and they've also lost their jobs, which is sad. But also because it's unprecedented times, there are also some unprecedented opportunities. And as professionals, it's our responsibility that we should have an eye for those opportunities. So, for example, earlier, say 5 or 6 years back, if kids had to learn music, they had to go somewhere and learn it from a person face to face. But today, there are so many online classes going on. So, there are also a lot of new opportunities that we can tap into as individuals. So, I would encourage you to keep an eye on that. In terms of succeeding and flourishing in the jobs which we have, I would say that 70% of our time we should spend on what is expected of us in our current job, but 30% of the time we should spend in preparing for the future, because again the career is a 40-year journey. So if we're doing well today but we are not preparing ourselves for the future, we are likely to land in a problem. Now, why is that happening? What is really changing? The life cycle of a role has become very small compared to what it used to be 25 or 30 years back. So let's say 30 years back, if somebody got a government job, it was pretty much, his path was set and he was going to continue like that till his retirement. But it's not like that today. So I'm a CA, and I'll give my own example. I used to have science in my 12th. So when I picked up BCom and CA after my 12th, it was not very easy for me. But slowly, I started working hard, and my friends in CA, they recognized that I was doing double entry very well. Now, double entry is that if you have a credit, you also have a debit, and it's a concept called final accounts in accounting. And one of them even commented that, you know what, you're so good at it that I think if you were woken up from your sleep, you would still do it well. And it really made me happy at that point in time because of the fact that I had had to work quite hard on learning accounting. But you know what? It's redundant today. Double entry is no skill at all to have. Today, the finance professionals are not expected to do accounting. What they are doing is business finance. I'm expected to provide insights to business for increasing revenues. So, if I'm seeing in the ERP that there are some unserviced leads, I need to highlight that to management. Another example, say CapEx reconciliations. At one point in time, we used to do, what was actual versus budget, and we used to make those reports. And today, that's not what we are doing. What we are doing is we going back to the board. Did we achieve the purpose of that activity? And what is the equipment usage? And if that equipment is not being utilized to the fullest extent, where is it that it can be utilized, and which other unit it can be utilized? So that's what has become our role today. Similarly, in R&D, from a pure scientist, today the person essentially needs to be a techno-commercial expert because until and unless he understands what's the value of the invention that he's going to do or the value of the development that he's undertaking, it's not good enough. The company is not going to spend resources on something which is not going to add business value. Look at how the teaching profile has changed. A year back, none of the teachers had to present, and today everybody is doing online classes. I do want to digress a little bit here because I've observed that teachers, they are wonderful in presenting. And why is that? It's not like they ever underwent PowerPoint presentation trainings. It's because they have a very, very solid foundation in what they are teaching. So I would encourage all of you to go deep into your area, into whatever you are doing, because once your content is strong, you will be able to communicate better, you'll be able to influence better. Coming back to, maybe I shouldn't elaborate too much about the HR, but HR from compliance has gone to become a business partner. They need to understand today, where is the company's business headed in 5 years' time? Are they hiring people who will be relevant 5 years down the line, or are they hiring for today's needs only? When they are conducting leadership development and training exercises, they need to understand whether it is reactive or whether they are having a sight on what is evolving in the industry landscape and they're preparing the people to take up those roles in future. And then they also need to understand the human and the technology interface and how it's going to be in 5 years' time, because people will not be expected to do the same things they are doing today. Their jobs will keep evolving. So basically, life expectancy of any skill has reduced, and the need to acquire new skills and to keep revamping ourselves is there. So that's how the nature of work has changed. Now, why is this changing? Technology plays a huge role in shaping business models. Technology is today collaborating with business functions and it's enabling strategy and transformation of businesses. So, technology allows people to operate in a global landscape. If there is a company in US, it does not have to only hire people in US, but it can also utilize personnel in India and efficiently operate while also enjoying certain cost advantages. We couldn't have imagined 20 years earlier that people would not require to set up a shop to sell their products. They're doing it on Amazon today. And there are so many other e commerce websites. So basically, industry is going to keep adopting new and new technology because it improves efficiency, it improves productivity, and also because it's something which brings in a relative advantage. So technological transformations are going to keep on taking place, and therefore it's really important if we want to flourish that we keep upskilling ourselves. Therefore, how it impacts the workforce is that we need to proactively plan what we need to learn to be relevant 3 years, 5 years later, spend 30% of our time doing that. And we also need to recognize that career development is an individual responsibility. We need to take active interest in understanding what are those skills which we have to pick up to be promoted to the next section of work. Moving forward, some of the success mantras you've learned, you have to unlearn, you have to relearn. Change is a part of career just as it's a part of life. And the sooner we adopt these changes and we are willing to learn new skills, the better it is for us. Again, going back to the solid basics, nothing can compromise that. Content has to be strong. And how does that happen? That happens when you are willing to go deep, when you're willing to put in the effort to understand. Learning agility needs to be there. What I mean by this is that you have to keep learning new things. And another thing is cross functional skill set, which is basically that while your role may be largely something, for example, you may be doing business development, but you also need exposure of marketing, of finance, of planning, of project management to be a well rounded professional in the long term. What industry is doing today is managing brains. We are not managing machines. That happens much easier. Predictive maintenance is the norm. But we are in the business of managing brains. And therefore, we need to recognize that we are working with fellow human beings and we have to have a good, positive atmosphere of teamwork. And we all need to have good team skills. We need to understand it's not a popularity contest. It's not like I'm the best, we're all in it together, and together we deliver results. Communication. This is another very important aspect because if we are not able to communicate well, we are losing opportunities. Communication is something we use to influence people, to communicate our ideas, and to generate a buy-in within a larger section of people so that we all align to objectives and we all function together. So that's very important. And I would encourage people to develop communication skills and to strengthen communication skills. Adopt and adapt. You need to adopt and you need to adapt. The pandemic is something which has forced people to adopt new ways of working, but then it's also something which has tested us and it has proven how resilient we are. In a way, even in these times, this is something which is positive. It's a strength which we all have and we should continue building on. Another success mantra, which is very important for both the organization but also for an individual, is high energy and high focus. As an individual, we need to be both a high mix of energy and focus. Now, if I have focus but I don't have the energy, there'll be a lot of things which will lag behind. But if I have high energy and I do not have the focus, frankly, I'm going to be detrimental to the objectives of the organization. So understand and as an individual, what are the objectives of the organization where you're working? Because it's very important to have that focus. And once you have that focus, it will also motivate you to remain energetic and motivated in doing that. I can give an example of a colleague who used to work with me. He used to report to me. And he was excellent. His background was marketing. But when he started working with me, I saw that he was finding it difficult to transitioning from marketing to business development, and as a result, his focus was not right. And we had to work a bit on that. And once he achieved it, he he rose so well in his career. I can't tell you. So this is something I would encourage everyone to understand and to appreciate. Stakeholder engagement is another very important thing. And the reason it's very important is because we work with people. We mostly do things in teams. And therefore, it's important that we understand what our stakeholders are. Our stakeholders are our customers. Our stakeholders are the employees within the company we are working with. Our stakeholders are also our family. And one of the most important ones is ourselves. We can't be fighting ourselves and trying to succeed. That doesn't happen. So we have to be aligned with our strengths so that we are not putting ourselves in stress, and so that we can do well. Because usually stress is a flight or a fight mode where the energies, they get concentrated to our limbs, not to our brain. And that's not good for the current times when it's a knowledge based scenario. Utilize social media. Now when I say utilize social media, I mean utilize it, not just be on it. So there are a lot of people who spend a lot of time on social media, but they're not using it. They're spending time, they're in fact killing their own time. Don't do that. Understand how to utilize it for your own career. LinkedIn is one of the largest professional networking platforms, and I can vouch for it that I have personally found so many business opportunities for my organization, collaboration opportunities on LinkedIn. And finally, gratitude. And what is gratitude? Gratitude is the feeling of the feeling of being thankful for what we have. And why it's important is because our careers are not a straight line. There are going to be ups and downs. So when we are going through an up, if we have gratitude, we'll also serve society back. But in our downs, we'll know to be kind to ourselves. So please also, exercise gratitude. It's one of the strongest forces within us. Moving forward to the next section, and I'd like to take a small little water break here. So we're going to talk about finding a new job in case that's what you're interested in, a job search. Now, it is a difficult time, definitely. But what is important is that we need to understand the macroeconomics. Now, there are still sectors that are growing. There are lots of sectors like that. There's pharmaceuticals and life sciences, there's healthcare, there is edtech, there is e-commerce, there's digital technological platforms, because lots of companies are going through a digital transformation. So there are also these software applications which need to be implemented, need to be marketed to companies, and they require people to do that. And then FMCGs. So understand this, that there are certain sectors which are still hiring. And in the current times, if you're looking for a job, if you understand this and you focus your efforts in this direction, your effort will be more productive. Now, once you've done that and you understand which those sectors are, and perhaps even identify which of these might be to your liking, you move to the next stage, which is shortlisting the companies. Now, there are companies that are growing. Look for the names of those companies. If you search on the internet, you'll find it easily. There are reports. The second section is companies that are entering India. Now, these are companies which are foreign companies, but they are wanting to set up factories in India. There is currently a lot of inclination within companies, foreign companies, to move their manufacturing from China to India. So keep an eye on that as well. And such hirings are going on. I see these kind of notifications very often. Now, once you have shortlisted your companies, what would you do? You would leverage networking. What does that mean? It means there are people who are in positions that they can help you in your job search. You want to connect with these people, you want to communicate to them your willingness to join the workforce. So you might have some personal contacts. These can be your relatives, your neighbors. Reach out to them. Let them know that you are finishing your studies or that you have certain kind of work experience and you're looking for a new job. And then continue to be in touch with them, understand their interests, and contribute to their interests by sharing knowledge about those areas if you know about it. Get in touch with relevant people on LinkedIn. Now, who are the relevant people? Relevant people are talent acquisition managers. So get in touch with them. Now, there are also HR people, there are people who are doing payroll, but those are not the people who you want to reach out to. You want to reach out to people whose roles and responsibilities are recruiting people, recruiting talent for the organization. So get in touch with them. How would you do that? You can send them a request, do personalize it, say, hello, I would like to get in touch with you. I hope that's okay. When you personalize the request, you strengthen the connection a little bit. Of course, it's a very, very new connection right now. Most people will accept the request also. Now, what would you do moving forward? You're not going to ask them for a role. You're not going to say, I'm looking for a job, find me a role. No. But what you're going to do is you follow them, you comment on their activities, you let them know that you bring a unique perspective, you put your own posts on LinkedIn, send quality information to people. If you let's say that I'm somebody from vaccines and you see something happening, you are based out of Nagpur and you see something which is happening locally there. Let's say somebody did a vaccine camp or something. If you send it to me, I'm going to appreciate it, right? The next thing that you can do is you register yourself on job portals. Obviously, job portals are going to be a very integral part of your job search. So create your profile there. You'll also reach out to consultants. Now, the way consultants usually work is that they have very specialized areas of work. So a consultant may be working for manufacturing industry. He may not work for service industry. A consultant who usually works for finance profiles may not be doing leadership hiring for marketing profiles. So you need to also understand where is the consultant operating before you ask him, for helping you out with your job search. Because only when you know that you are reaching out to a relevant consultant will you be helping him place a candidate for an opportunity that is with him at that point in time. And then finally, there are job fairs, and then there are also some walk ins. So keep an eye on that. These get posted by companies very often on social networking platforms. So keep visiting those platforms and keep an eye for the job fairs. There are a lot of online job fairs going on right now. Moving on, and this is the last section, which is having a CV, a good CV, which helps you to land your job. Now, what is a CV? A CV is basically a marketing brochure of a person. Every employee, prospective employee, or current employee is basically a brand. So, a CV is my personal brand identity. So, it's very important to have a good CV. Now, I found this template online on the internet, and I put this here. It's basically Jane Doe's CV. I liked it. It's clear, so I put it as an example. So what's a good CV? You should have a good template. There are many freemium softwares. Freemium softwares are those which are free, and you also have the option to take a premium one by paying something. You can just utilize the free database that they have and pick up a CV template, okay, which you like. Now, it should be a clear CV template which has good formatting and has clarity about various sections of the CV. Your CV should be one page. And the reason for that is that usually when your CV goes to any HR, they take less than 10 seconds to look at it. When I get 5 CVs, I'm looking at them maybe 20, 25, 30 seconds each maximum, not beyond that. So have a concise CV. It should be very clear and it should have in it what is most relevant to the job you are applying for. Have a master CV template. What do I mean by a master CV template? A master CV template is something which has a complete repository of everything which can be relevant in your CV. And the way you are going to utilize it, that basis the job description for which you are applying, you will choose the relevant information from your master template to populate your CV. Now, what is it in terms of content that your CV must have? So you're going to have contact information, summary statement, your skills, your career history, your educational qualifications, and additional information. So the first point is contact information. Now look at the CV, which is displayed on your screen. So Jane Doe has very clearly mentioned her email ID, her phone number, also her location. This is about it. That's about what you want. You don't need to provide your entire address because you want to be concise and succinct in your CV. It should not be very elaborate. Moving on, the next section of the CV is a summary. Now, Jane has mentioned here as her summary an independent and self motivated business graduate with proven and tested business procurement, sales, and marketing skills, a strong link between theory and practice from an MSc, practical internship, and a part time job. Now, I would say it's a very nice summary because by reading just this much, I understand that she also has done a part time job and that she understands the link between theory and practice. And also, she's mentioned she's independent and self motivated. So it's a good starting point, and I'm going to assess her on these skills later. And this may be relevant to what I'm looking for. Now, one thing which I wanted to discuss at this stage is many times candidates mention a career objective. My recommendation is you don't need to do that because your objective is personal to you. That's what you want to do. But the summary which you bring into your CV is a summary of the value that you are capable of bringing to the organization. And that is what the company or the talent manager is interested in. So I would strongly recommend that instead of objective, you should write a summary about what you bring to the table. Moving to the next one, skills. Now, mention skills which are relevant from the job description. And why is this important? Because the first step which usually your CV has to maneuver these days is the ATS, the applicant tracking system. So it's filtering criteria. It's a computer software through which the CV passes. And if the software determines that the skill set is matching with the skill set which has been mentioned in the job description, it makes to the next stage. Hence, you should have relevant keywords from the job description. So let us say that the job description mentions planning. And I have done some project management. Now, usually project management would also entail planning, but it would help me if I also mention the term planning there. So basically what you need to do here is that your master CV template should have a lot of various kind of skills which you bring to the table, and whatever is relevant to the job description, you populate your CV with that and send that CV to the organization. Now, the next one is career history, right? And for those who have been working, those who have work experience, you are going to mention your employment history here. Again, building in the keywords from the job description. Your employment history should be in a reverse chronological order. What that means is that whatever you've done recently, that is most relevant, and therefore you are going to put that first and you're going to populate your CV backwards. Now, here I want to bring one point that whenever you are writing your CV, write a results-oriented CV, achievement-oriented CV. What does that mean? I'm going to take an example from Jane's CV. Now, Jane has mentioned reviewed constantly the customer feedback, and then suggested how to improve processes and service levels. Okay, that's good. When I look at the CV, I feel okay, Jane has the capability to review and to suggest improvement. But what can be better than that is reviewed customer feedback and suggested improved processes that resulted in 10% higher service levels. Because when Jane mentions that or any kind of a quantifiable metric, then I know that it also generated success at the workplace. Having said that, if instead of just suggesting, she has even implemented the change, she should mention reviewed customer feedback and implemented improved processes that resulted in 10% higher service levels. Because when she does that, I know that she is somebody who can work across the entire value chain. So basically, it is Jane's CV. It is Jane who has done that. But how she articulates it in her CV gives an impression to the recruiter of how much Jane is capable of bringing to the table. Now, moving to the next point, which is educational qualifications. And many times, we see CVs which have marks, sometimes which do not have marks. So, should people mention their marks or not? Now, if you are a fresher and you had good grades, it's good, it's recommended you mention your marks. If you are somebody who has already worked for 10 years, you don't need to mention your marks, because then your recruitment depends on the work experience you have, not on your marks. Moving on to the next section, which is the additional information. Now, this is something which can be tricky. I've myself come across many CVs where I feel this section could have been better. Many times people mention here their passport number, their date of birth, their marital status. A recruiter doesn't need to know that. I don't need to know that. I'm going to evaluate people on the basis of what they bring to the table. I'm not going to make my decisions based on whether or not they are married, what their religion is. I would recommend please avoid it. In fact, to a few recruiters, it may even be irritating that you're not in sync with the current format of the CV. Another thing which I've seen many a times in CVs is references being mentioned. I think it's a bit early. Please don't do that. That is something only after you have gone through a couple of rounds of interviews and the organization has made up their mind that they are interested in recruiting you. They would ask you for references, and you can share your references at that time. So that's what, in summary, if you do these things, you're going to have a good CV. And if you have that, you only need one call if you are well prepared for your interview to convert that call into a job offer. So I would suggest that be prepared for it. Preparing for a new job search is at least a 6-month activity. Prepare for the interview because you don't know when it's going to come and from where it's going to come. And it's much better to have just one call and 100% conversion instead of having 10 calls and not being able to convert because you were not prepared for the interview. Thank you and all the very best for your career development. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Divya ji. I think that was a great presentation. I think it's a complete guide to career development, and I'm sure students must have learned a lot of new tips, perhaps the contemporary ways how the recruiters are looking at candidates. Um, will If that is okay, we can take a few questions. And Akashji, would you like to moderate that? One question that I see on the chat box is, will artificial intelligence replace jobs of MBA finance graduates? So you are an MBA finance yourself, like business analytics, etc. So would you like to answer that question?
Definitely. And this question reminds me of about 2 or 3 years back when one of my teammates in taxation, when we were discussing implementing RPA, robotic process automation, in our company. He asked this question, that what does this mean for my future? Like, what does it mean for future roles within the company? Does it mean that we are going to reduce jobs? And I responded to him at that time that no, this is not that, because of this, you are going to lose your job. But if you do not understand how the work profiles will change, then you need to worry about something. So, again, to respond to this question, it does not mean that AI will replace people, but what we as individuals need to do is we have to own our skills, that we are ready to work in an atmosphere which is driven by AI, because ultimately it will be the people who are going to utilize the AI platforms to do any kind of analysis and to make sense out of that analysis. So, I'll give you one example. This had happened a couple of months back. I think it was with Indigo Airlines that somebody had put a comment on their Twitter handle, I think, and it was a complaint, but it was a sarcastic complaint. And the Indigo handle thanked the customer because it could not understand it is sarcastic. So it's a very long way that AI would develop to an extent that it could completely replace people. I don't see it happening even for the next 50 years. Companies do not deploy technologies to replace people, but companies do it to enhance productivity. And therefore, as employees, as candidates, we need to keep upskilling ourselves and to utilize it to our advantage. But I don't see it replacing MBA finance candidates.
Right, fantastic. Thank you for that answer. Akashji, would you like to
Sure, sir. Thank you so
bounce off
much.
a few questions? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much, Divya. I was,
Pleasure is
you know,
mine. Thank you.
thank you. By the time I was listening to you, I was also trying to relate to the students, who we interact with on a day-to-day basis. And, the your session traversed us from almost a campus to a corporate. You covered almost all the points which as a student we face, and also as an employee when you get into corporate world, and how to get there. You've also covered that. So wonderful session, first of all.
Thank
On
you.
behalf of the students, allow me to ask few questions as they are not they are backstage. Uh, One of the concern is, and as you rightly mentioned, that when as a human being, when we face any tough situations, the brain says, that's amygdala hijack, if I remember correctly, which says either fight or flee. And you told us all about how to fight it, right? So one of the challenge when this kind of a situation, say COVID-19 situation or a current situation which we all are in, comes, is the easiest route to think is it's very difficult to get into a new job, right? How do you think so? One, you covered some of the areas where they need to maybe touch upon. Still, how do you think so? One of the challenge which I think we face as a student is, and the students faces, uh, the CV does not have much of content to write. Yeah. So especially say their skill sets, if they write any particular skill set, how do they narrate to the instances, or how do they maybe format their story to relate to that? So even if you ask simple questions that tell me your strengths, or tell me something about yourself, or tell me your areas of improvement, some of the very simple questions gets very difficult for me to answer if I do not have a solid story, right?
Yes,
So any tip you'd like to give to the students for that? Because
sure.
when you're working, it's very easy to relate to various instances, but when you're
Yes,
not, it gets difficult to think.
yes. So, one thing which I believe is that be true to yourself. Don't try to pose as another person. So let's say if somebody was to ask me, not in a professional setting, but just about, in a very, mundane setting, what are my strength areas? I could say something like that, I've gone through setbacks, but then I've always stepped up and I've not let it, disappoint me for a long time. And obviously, I'm going to have some stories. Everybody goes through failures. Who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So I'll be able to talk about that, right? The other thing, given what kind of a background we are coming from, let's say that if I studied in an English medium school and if I did a lot of debates and all, I can say that, I'm good at communicating, I'm good at persuasion. Let's say I come from a little less privileged background. I think in that case, I can say that, I understand the importance of sincerity and I've done it. I've got scholarships. So it brings in an aspect of me to the recruiter that, I'm a dependable person for the team because I'm sincere. So I think each of us has our stories, and everybody who is on your program, I'm sure there is a way that you shortlisted and you selected them. And the biggest thing which I would encourage candidates, is to have gratitude. I'm going back to something which I really strongly believe in, because it's important to know that we are much more privileged and we've had some achievements which others don't have. And why do we have them? I mean, the fact is those candidates have been chosen by test. There has to be something in their background, in their education, in what they've done, that you chose them to develop them, right, going forward.
Yeah.
That's right.
True. If I have to ask you,
Another thing,
yeah,
sorry, another
yeah,
thing.
please.
I think projects and internships is also something which candidates should use.
Yeah.
And this is something which I usually advise people who start their careers. In fact, I've been like, I have 15 years or more of experience. And even today, I'm willing to make choices which are, opportunities where I'm getting to learn something new. And I'm not necessarily, getting a major hike in making those changes in my career, because the learning opportunities which one can get from, say, projects and internships is immense. So while obviously landing a job is a little more difficult, but if you were to ask people, say 5 or 10 years your senior, and say that, "Hey, you know what, I'm looking for some kind of a project, can you give me something?" I'm sure most people will say yes, right? And then there are also some projects you don't have to ask anybody. Just group yourself, be a group of 4 or 5 people based on, similar kind of strengths or similar kind of career interests, and decide that we want to work on this, and then work on that project, do a lot of research on that, and then try and also develop some insights. So if somebody, let's say, did a project, say future of work, and how the workforce or the industrial landscape will look, say 10 years from now, I would find it a pretty interesting report, because somebody is thinking about the future. So I would encourage that if there are no opportunities to get experience on site, do research on industries, on companies, on career opportunities on your own, in a group. And that will be something you will be able to mention on your CV as well. And frankly, when we were in ISB and we were applying to companies, some of the key projects which we did, we mentioned those in our CV. And we were interviewed on that, and then the depth of your knowledge was what determined whether you impressed the recruiter or not.
Sure. Thanks. As a senior leader, I think while you were, talking, you almost mentioned about all the functions. Hence, I'm taking this permission to ask you this question. If you have to look for three skill sets in freshers, what would those be?
Sure. So I think the three things which I'm going to look for in people is they have to have the ability to learn new things. Because when a person brings in that ability, I don't have to worry whether that person will help me in a task or in everything, right? So that is something which is very important. So learning agility is very important. A person's willingness to learn and ability to learn is, I think, the most important thing for me. And I see so many people, many seniors, who get the opportunity but they don't want to do it because it's a lot of hard work, right? When you put yourself in a place that's new for you, it demands a lot from you, and the chance of failing is of course there. So a lot of people let those opportunities go. They in fact frankly stay away from it. But I think the one biggest thing which I look for in any candidate when I'm assessing, when I'm interviewing, is the person's ability and willingness to learn. The second thing that I look for in a person is sincerity, because I don't want to keep following up with the person. I'm not a micromanager. I prefer that we discuss what needs to be done. If the person is having a problem, he escalates to me. Of course, I will also keep reviewing and have some hygiene check in place. But I don't believe in, spoon feeding and watching the person all the time to see that the work gets done. So that is a second one. And the third thing is communication, because it's really important. And when I say communication, it does not mean only talking fluently. No, that's not the idea. Communication, most importantly, is that you are able to communicate to the other party, and you are able to align the group for something which we collectively need to do. So if the person does not have that clarity of thought, the person will never be able to communicate well, and collectively we will not be able to achieve what we are capable of achieving. So these are the three things which I look for within a person. Of course, then depending on the job and depending on the seniority for which I'm interviewing, I'll add other things as well. But these are the very minimum.
Wonderful. I think Sir rightly mentioned that your session has been a great career guidance and career development session. I think you covered it all for the students. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Um,
you.
one question, Akashji, on the chat window I can see.
Sure.
How long should we? I'm just reading the chart. Navya has asked this question. How long should we stay in a company for experience in view of developing a successful career? The people. Would you like to take that question?
Sure. So you can spend your entire career in a company to be successful, or you could make moves. So I think there's no right answer to that. Nobody will ever tell you that you definitely need to uh, move from one company to the other to be successful. And there are examples of people who stuck with one company and they grew a lot there. So it really depends on who you are, where you are, who are you working with. Is it an environment which is something which allows you to perform well, or doesn't allow you to perform well? So I know so many people who worked in defense forces for a couple of years, and then they switch tracks, they go for corporate roles. uh, and then there are people who worked in the military forces forever, and they reach the high ranks. Similarly, in companies also, in my present company, in my past company also, people worked from the very beginning of their careers till the very end, and they reached high ranks. And there were people who came from outside as well. So there's no one size fit all kind of an answer to this question.
Absolutely. Um,
It's an interesting question, and I know that a lot of candidates think about it.
but I think
I've seen that people many times also believe that when they move jobs, they progress quicker. I uh, I don't necessarily believe that it is true. I've also seen Many times people, they stick with their jobs and they learn a lot and they grow a lot, because once you have found your roots in an organization, it's so much more easier for you. Settling down in any new place also has its own challenges and it takes time. So, frankly, it's about if your current job and your current organization is allowing you the privilege to grow in the way that you want to grow, I think you should continue there. I mean, why would you move?
Absolutely. I think when it comes to a job role, perhaps this question becomes a little more relevant, where I think in every few years, when you are looking at moving up in the organization hierarchy or in the ladder, I think it's important that you keep learning new skills, keep acquiring new skills to move up and occupy new positions or take up new roles in your organization, whether you take it up in within your organization or you go out and find a suitable role outside. I think perhaps that is where this question becomes a little more relevant, perhaps.
Correct. Yeah.
And as I think you mentioned during your session also that stay relevant to your skills, and because it's not permanent, and even if we are working hard to skill them, if they treat this as just the beginning of the platform and continue to do so, they will continue to rise. If they think this is the end and I'm done with this skilling, then that's where the whole problem starts. One more question, if you allow me, please, is you spoke about self-awareness and as one of the important aspect. One of the challenge which as a student I think this gen faces is expecting too high from self, and hence the offers which may not come in that big form are not acceptable to me to start with. And the kind of being that visionary where you know that 5 years down the line how it is going to move, I can't see that. I'm not being able to see out of the tunnels so far. Hence, what do you suggest to those? And of course, added on is the Google. When you type and you get thousands of opportunities, it maybe at times gives you a lot of understanding, but confuses you at the same time.
Yeah.
Being over informed is also a confusion, right? So,
Yeah.
how do you suggest to handle that kind of a situation where the offer may not come in, that big gift packet, and I have to understand that whether I should take it or leave it.
Yeah. So I'm again going back to saying that our careers are like a 40-year journey, and therefore they're kind of majority of our lifespan also, and we need to take it like that. Like, I have to think about my career for the next 20 years. So it's not about what I am today. It's about where am I going to reach in 20 years, right? And again, it may not be a very rosy situation to begin with, but I can always find my way there. So this is something which it's a very relevant point you raised, Akash. There are many times I've told my teams that, guys, be a little kinder on yourself. No need to be so harsh. And I see it very often with the younger generation. In fact, there was this girl who she's a doctor, and she used to work under me, and she was very good at what she was doing. And in the 2 or 3 years that she worked under me, she came to me at least 5, 6 times and said that, I feel I'm not doing enough. When I'm comparing myself with this one, I feel that, I'm not contributing. And I had to remind her that, the guy you're comparing yourself with has 20 years of experience. So obviously he brings something to the table, which I don't expect you to bring to the table. So please have realistic expectations of yourself. So you're right, but I think that is a journey which we need to make internally. We need to understand that our career is not the job we get, the first job we get, but it is ultimately where are we able to reach? Because if I'm able to get a great job, the first job, but I stagnate in it and I can't do well, I think it's very it's very detrimental to me or my life. compared to maybe I didn't get my dream job, but I enjoyed my career and I reached, say, almost my dreams, if not my complete dream. I think it would be a much happier life, and a much better career also.
Absolutely.
Another
Sure.
thing, I
Yeah.
think that current generation, not, needs to also understand that it's okay to be ambitious, but it's not good to be over ambitious. And many times I see it comes in the way of good teamwork. So, uh, as a person, I worry much more about that whether a person is a good team member or not, instead of whether he's an individual achiever or not. And nobody, no organization, again, it's not a popularity contest that you are the Miss World. You're all a team who's winning together, and that needs to be understood. But your point is very relevant. I know people go through those frustrations. They have a burden of expectation on themselves. Maybe some of it is parental expectations also, societal expectations also. But I think that's also a part of the journey that they need to cover a couple of years into the job, mature as individuals and as professionals, to understand that the kind of jobs which get covered by Google are very few, maybe 0.1%, the top jobs in any institution. And they have to maybe, understand that they are still amongst the 10% most privileged people in terms of the opportunities which they are getting. And ultimately, it's a fair game. If you bring a lot of value to the table, over time, the organization will recognize it and promote you, and you're going to get your due. So have
Absolutely.
that patience. It's a virtue.
Fantastic. I think I've just two quick questions, if your time permits to take them. One
Fortunately,
is,
it's Saturday. It's a holiday, so please go ahead.
yeah, the first one is, we have seen from our experience that a lot of young students are not very keen to take up sales job. And you have been into business development now. You have been a chartered accountant. You are an MBA finance. Now you are into you're looking at business development. What advice would you like to give them? Is a sales job or a job in a marketing team is good or bad? Would you like to share some of your experiences with them?
Sure. So it is good, it is bad. It depends on who you are and whether you are, the person who will have an interest and an inclination and a natural strength in selling or not. So I've had people, and I worked in vaccines for the most part of my career, and a lot of it is public sector marketing, and there is a lot of public policy, and there are a lot of multilateral organizations who want the product at the lowest price. And there have been people who've asked me, "Oh, but why will we not sell at this? Why, why are we not selling at the lower price? Why are we selling at this?" So, if a person doesn't understand the concept of, uh, you know, uh, demand, supply, price, I think he's better off not taking up a sales job. He'll definitely have another strength, and he should, play to his strength. So, there's nothing wrong with the sales job. There are people who love it. There are people who excel in it. Uh, Maybe I may prefer doing a sales job in comparison to, auditing, really, even though I'm a chartered accountant. So there's no, it's not like whether it's the correct job or not. It's about whether it's correct for you or not.
Thank you so much for that answer. One last question. You said career is a very long journey, and it's not about just one gain or one loss here and there. You need to build your credibility along throughout this journey. I think you need to make new friends. You need to build your credibility. I think people need to respect you for keeping your commitments that you make to others. How important is that? We talk about integrity. We talk about the commitments that you make, and what kind of a person you are, and what kind of relationships that you build over the years, that decides where you are going to stand after the end of the journey, maybe after 40, 30, 40 odd years. Would you like to share some of the insights on this? Because when young students are going to start their career, perhaps this is something that people don't normally think in the initial days of their career. uh, how important it is to be truly professional when you are in the organization, how important it is to stay true to yourself when you are even in the initial days of your career. Would you like to share some of these things, because so that they are aware of what we are
Sure.
talking about before they make a career, before they begin their career?
Sure. So, and it's a very good point that you've raised, Mr. Nayak. Uh, we were talking about stakeholder engagement, right, earlier. Um, it's one of the most important aspects, not just of career, but of every, person's existence. So while you mentioned about our credibility with, say, external parties, there's also a credibility with our team members, with cross-functional teams with whom we are working, and ultimately, uh, that is the single biggest factor which determines how far you are going to go. Because if you are a person who enjoys that credibility from your colleagues, the organization can also trust you that they can get the support of the colleagues under your leadership to deliver on the objectives which the organization wants. And if you are not able to, build that credibility, uh, that's pretty much the end of a career, you know. So there was a very nice article somewhere which I had read, that sometimes you may have to fire your best performing CEO, and the reason is that he's spoiling the culture. So, an organization, companies, they are perpetually in existence. It doesn't matter based on an individual whether he's there or not there. And to preserve that culture, a company has to sometimes fire their best performing employee also if he's not able to manage the sanctity of those relationships. So the corollary of that is that as individuals, understand the importance of it. Do not go to people only when you need work from them, but also communicate with them. Let them know what is happening to a particular project after you took their help or their inputs. When something has been achieved, make sure that whoever contributed in that, bring it to management attention. Send an email to thank people. They feel good about it, and the next time you're going to work with them, they'll know that they are going to get their due. And I can tell you, I've had so much support from my colleagues. Sometimes it has exceeded what I had expected. On something, I may not have told them that, please take this on priority, but they've done it even without being asked. So, your relationships with your colleagues matter a lot. Similarly, your relationships with your customers matter a lot. So, many times the tide actually swings in your favor based on your relationships when you are interacting with another organization. And there are instances when I remember that there is a company, they had raised money from private equity, and they mentioned that this was not the best offer, but because of the people with this particular firm, we went with this firm. I think it was Nephroplus. They did that. So, relationships make a lot of difference. And ultimately, as individuals, if you are not true to yourself, you will not also be able to have your head high. You cannot, okay, you have to make a choice whether you want to operate as an insecure person who fakes it and has no respect. What's your legacy going to be? Or, whether you want to enjoy healthy relationships with your colleagues, because that is something very important for your happiness, for your professional satisfaction as well. We are all ultimately, we are all personal brands. There is a credibility which is attached or not attached to us. So we have to worry about it. We must make sure that more than anything else, that's something we preserve.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think I'm sure if this, with this bit of advice to students when they're about to enter the job market and they're going to start their career, they're certainly going to be, this is going to be very, very useful. Before we let you go, would you like to share when the vaccines are going to be available and when all of us are going to get the vaccine?
Okay. So, I have a niece who's 3 years old, and every time she's talking to me, she also asks me, "Mosi, vaccine kab aayegi?" So I'm not surprised you asked me that. Now, kab aayegi, I think it's going to be there by end of this year in, say, US, etc. In India, early part of next year. To answer your question, which is a more interesting one, when are you going to get it? It's at least 3, 4 years away, Mr. Nayak, because you seem fairly young and quite healthy. So, it will be the age bracket which is more vulnerable, the 80 plus with comorbidities who will get it first, and then the next year, the 70 plus, then the 60 plus. So I think by then, for all you know, you'll have herd immunity. You will not need it. I cannot
That's a good
answer
one.
when you will get it. But uh, vaccines is something I've been working in for so long, so this is very close to heart, and I'm very impressed with how the industry has responded to the needs, and the entire ecosystem has responded to the needs. Because usually for developing any vaccines, it takes us 6, 7 years. Nothing happens before that. Very few vaccines for any company have been developed in 4 years or 5 years. And right now, we are talking about vaccine development within 1 year, within 2 years. So it's also going to change the industry landscape. The entire, life cycle of vaccine development may just change because of that. So again, there is an opportunity in the times as well, for the industry. Let's see.
Thank you so much. You can see in the chat box, there are so many thank you messages for you. We have Geeta who says, thank you, ma'am. Neha, thank you, ma'am, for the knowledge and guiding us. Then we have Imtiaz, Shweta, Israt. So many thanks. A lot of messages for you this evening. We are truly grateful that you took out time from your schedule, from your busy schedule,
Not
to
a problem at
share
all.
your thoughts with our students this evening. I think evening well spent. Thank you so much uh, for accepting again our invitation and spending this time with us. Thank you. Akash,
Thank
would you
you.
like to say some
All
last
the
word?
very best to everyone. All the best. Have very successful careers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful session, Divya. In fact, we did not realize when did we spend 1 hour plus with you, and we look forward to listen to you maybe more
Yeah.
in coming days. Thank you so much. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank you, students. You have a pleasant evening. Thank you.